Hello. Now we're going to get into some basic animation. I wanted to talk about null objects first and parenting right here, because it's something that's really easy to implement and to keep your layers organized, keep your animations simple, and control a lot of things at once with only one layer. So what you want to do is go up to Layer, New, Null Object. What that drops in is basically a point in space right here. Nothing shows up when you render, nothing really happens inside of it. It's just a point in space that you can use to drive other things. And just like any layer, it has the same 5 transform values, parameters: anchor point, position, scale, rotation, and opacity. And one thing I want to show too real quick are another shortcut, makes your work life easier. For every parameter in here, there's a shortcut to just get to that one parameter to view it. Because as you can see, if I expand all of these, you end up running out of space really quickly. So one thing to know is that all of these parameters except for opacity can be called up by using A, P, S, and R. So if I want to do anchor point, I can do A, position is P, scale is S, rotation is R. Now opacity you would think would be O, but it's not. It's actually T, as an opacity. So now what you want to do is, if you go to P, you can call that up and you can start making animations right away just in the position parameter. And if you hit P again, then it goes away and it collapses the whole layer. Now what I want to do is, I'm going to end up parenting all of this stuff except for the background to the null object. And then you'll see in a second why that's powerful. So what I can do is shift select all these layers, and because I have the parent column turned on in the timeline, I can just pick whip the selected layers and point it to the null object. As you'll see right here, it's telling you which layer these are parented to. And you could also, if you don't want to do a pick whip, you could do just a drop down menu to pick as well. But this is like a lot easier. It's a lot more organized. Now what parenting enables you to do is I can go in here in my position, and if I move this, it moves everything, because all of these layers are then parented to this one layer. One of the true skills of motion design comes from knowing how to reveal things and make things disappear. Transitions are really kind of the bread and butter of motion design. How do you get from one thing to another? And that creativity involved in that, I think, sets people apart as motion designers. Now the first thing I want to do in my animation is have it scale up from 0. Now whenever you want to animate something, you end up, now in order to animate, you have to use this icon right here, a stopwatch. Once I click this, on any parameter in any layer, as long as there's a stopwatch next to it, when I click that stopwatch, a keyframe is placed. And all a keyframe is it's a recording of a value at a point in time. So right now, this keyframe is saying at 9 frames in, this scales 100%. And I can move this around to be wherever. And I can actually copy and paste keyframes. So when it's selected, I can do Command C, Command V, copy and paste. That's helpful later on if you end up getting buried in keyframes and you want to start doing some more organization or adding holds, keeping the exact same value over a specific period of time without having to make another keyframe. So this allows you to copy it exactly. Anyway, so this keyframe is 100%. What I could do then is click the value for scale, and I can just type in 0, hit enter. And because everything's parented, and the scale of the null goes to 0, everything goes to 0. Now notice I didn't parent the background, which is just a white solid layer. So that'll stay there like that. But now as I hit play, I go back to 0 and hit the space bar, this ends up scaling up to be what I like. Now of course right now it's really cheesy, but it's a good start. Now I'm going to go in into my composition settings right here and change my duration to 4 seconds right now. I think that might be a good amount of time. Now one thing I want to do too, well, now that I have this null object that's driving all these layers, I can actually scale and resize this logo to be the size that I want inside this new composition size. So one thing to watch out for when you start animating and you have this engaged and you have keyframes laid out, whenever you make a change on an animated layer, it makes an automatic keyframe. See how that made a keyframe right there? So now if I played this, it would do that. It's obviously not what I want, and sometimes it can be confusing just to understand why things are moving around when you didn't really add a keyframe or didn't want to. Just important to know that when you have this as an animated layer, if you want to make it, say I want to make a change right now, I'm going to delete this keyframe. So say right now I start animating and I'm like, well, I don't really like how big it is right in this layer. What you have to do is go to that keyframe of where the animation ends. Then I can start making my size adjustments. So if I go back to 0 and watch it again, it'll go to that 80% scale, where originally it was 100% scale. So making changes after you start animating, it's important to go to those keyframes, or altogether just delete them and start over again, depending on how far you are into a project. One more thing to note, I can move the position around as much as I want, even though the scale is animated, because I haven't hit the stopwatch on the position parameter yet. So I'm going to center this. Like that. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go to the 3-second mark, highlight my 100% or my 80% scale keyframe, Command C, Command V. I'm going to copy and paste that right there, go to the end, and do the same thing for the first keyframe. So now I have a distinct entrance, awkward pause, and then exit. Now another thing that's important to note, this green line right here is your RAM preview line. Now when this is all green, that means After Effects has cached the entire animation and is playing it back at near real time. And one way to know that is right up here in your info bar. It'll tell you the frames per second that it's playing at compared to what it should be and what it actually is. Even though your animation's been cached, depending on how powerful your computer is, this would either be real time or not real time. One way to to get around preview as a command is on a laptop with no number pad, you do Control 0. And as you can see up here, since I'd cached the frames already, it took a quick second to lock everything in, and then you can see it's playing back in real time. So that's really important. It's so easy to get locked into the timing and animation of something that you're doing and forget that it's not in real time. And so when you end up going to render it, it's either really fast, or there's things going on that weren't noticeable. So it's always good to preview in real time as much as possible before you end up rendering.